This is Wes Geer, and you are listening to That Sober Guy podcast. Yeah.
That Sober Guy podcast contains adult content, merciless truth, and emotional nudity. Listener discretion is advised. Broadcasting from the west coast of the Golden State, the nation's most straightforward recovery talk show. That Sober Guy podcast, helping to keep your brain sharp and your blood clean. And now, Shane Raymer.
What's up? We got a great show for you today. We're talking with Wes Geer. Wes founded and was the original guitar player, songwriter, and producer for the band Hed PE, and also went on to play guitar for the band Korn from 2010 to 2013. And now he founded Rock to Recovery, which is a super, super dope organization that goes around to recovery centers all over, and they share the gift of music with recovering addicts. They also work with some of the military and the Wounded Warrior Project. They help troubled teens, all kinds of cool stuff. Wes is going to share some of that. We got a couple things to get to, but first, a word from our sponsor. Sober Nation is the largest online recovery community and treatment resource center. They provide treatment resources to those struggling with addiction, as well as to family members who are caught in the crossfire. On top of that, Sober Nation is a huge community of good people who share their experience with each other. They have informative content, recovery and addiction news, as well as a kick-ass entire clothing line which helps expand the culture of recovery. They can be found at www.sobernation.com. Once again, that's sobernation.com. Check them out, folks. Also, go to thatsoberguy.com, click on the live meetings tab, and join the next Sunday morning, 8 a.m. Pacific time, live online recovery meeting. Come in, say hi, tell us what's up, join the community. There's no pressure. It's simply a platform for us to communicate on and talk about how we feel. Let's ask some questions, that kind of shit. It's great. Check it out. Live meetings, thatsoberguy.com. Also, the best way you can support the show is by going on iTunes and leaving us a rating or review on there. It helps rank the show, which in turn helps more people find That Sober Guy podcast. You can also go to thatsoberguy.com and click the donate tab if you'd like to drop a couple bucks on the operation. All funds donated go back into the show and help to bring you the best and most quality information and recovery content. You can also find us on Facebook at Facebook/That Sober Guy Podcast, and on Twitter at 5That Sober Guy. Check us out on there as well. And now let's get to the interview. Here's Wes Geer. All right, today we're talking with founder and CEO of Rock to Recovery, Wes Geer. Rock to Recovery is a nonprofit that allows recovering addicts, veterans, victims of abuse, and troubled teens the opportunity to express themselves through the gift of music. Wes is also the co-founder, former guitar player, songwriter, and producer for the band Hed PE, and also played guitar for the band Korn from 2010 to 2013. Wes, what's up, man? How are you today?
What's up? I am good. Yeah. Good, man.
Nice, man. So I wasn't, I've still been throwing this around in my head up until just the last couple of minutes here, if I was going to read this to you or not, but it's so cool. I think I have to do this, man. So I had a buddy of mine.
Do it.
I'm going for it, man. My buddy of mine, Ray Penny, right? We've known each other since we were in first grade. And he actually took me to my first Papa Roach show out here in Vacaville, right? I think I was 15, and he goes, you got to loosen up a little bit. And I'm seeing all these kids jumping around and stuff, and they're going crazy and they're letting loose. And he's like, dude, you just gotta roll with it, man. You just gotta get into it. So I did that, man, and it kind of took over. From there, we discovered Hed PE. And so I told him you were coming on the show a couple days ago, and he sends me this text, and it says, Hed PE 1997 album. Remember cruising with Rebecca, Justin to a sophomore dance, bumping that shit in my parents' car. He said, I just went on a 20-minute Hed PE binge, having listened to that CD forever, man. And I'm cracking up because I started thinking back, and I brought some of it up on Spotify today. Listened to a couple tracks that, is it Ken 2012 or 2012 Ken, something like that. But yeah, dude, that's good stuff, man. That's cool stuff. That was the original album, huh? Or second? I think that was the second album.
That
huh?
was the Ken was on the first album that we did with a record label. We released something before that was just like an indie release, self-produced down here in Orange County. Yeah, but Ken 2012 was on our first record label when we were on Jive Records.
Yeah, man, that's cool, man. That's good stuff. I just had to share. I had to share that with you, man, and give a shout out to my homie Ray out there. I know he listens to the show too. So, anyways, man.
Yeah,
so
it's cool, man. It's cool because, bands, you make music and you're trying to worry about, making money and surviving and getting shows, and you're always, always chasing the next meal or whatever, the next thing. It's good to hear when you hear stories that, like, because you forget. That's why you do music. You guys listen to our music on the way to, like, what was it, some sort of dance or something? That's cool. That's rad, man. I'm stoked you share that stuff, because when you're a musician, you kind of forget that that our band and our music could be part of something cool in your life. That's cool, man. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I'm sure you know this too. You have your favorite bands and favorite music that you like to listen to. Music is such a beautiful thing because it literally can take you back to a place in time that you were. It's almost like a time warp. So when there's certain songs that come on, even from when I was a kid, stuff my parents used to listen to, like I can literally for a split second, you feel that feeling in your gut and it takes you back to that place. And I have a lot of memories like that. And I think a lot of us do out there. So that's part of the cool thing about Rock to Recovery, which is something we're going to get to here shortly. I just kind of wanted to start it off like this, man. You've been through a journey, like many of us, some peaks and valleys, definitely. What is life like today for you, Wes?
I've recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. My life is amazing. I never thought it could be this amazing, and it just continues to get better, because, I think what happens for a lot of people who have problems with drugs or drinking or all of it is they think that that's the problem. And really for me, that's how I dealt with the problem, which really was me, how I feel with my life and the traumas and all the stuff I went through. I had a problem dealing with that. So I dealt with it with getting loaded. So I stopped getting loaded and I got to get down to the root of the issue and fix me. So I got rid of the booze, got rid of the drugs, and I fixed me. And the more I work on fixing me, the better I get, and the more I've been able to unlock my true potential. And I think all of our true potential is much more than we ever realized it was. Humans often love to doubt how far they can go. But when you're constantly just trying to make yourself better, and also trying to do things for the right reason, not just trying to do it for the money or do it for the chicks, but do it because you want to be a good person and give back give back to humanity and society. And then it's weird. It's like you get in the vortex of the universe and the magical things start to happen that are the only way you can describe them is miraculous, and that's where I'm at right now, in the vortex of miracles. As funny as that may sound, that's where it's at.
No, man, that's real. And I understand. And one of the things you said, I love that you brought up the fact that, booze, alcohol, drugs, for many of us, especially early on in our recovery, we put everything on that. Oh, it's all we blame even from the beginning, at least I know I did for myself. And as time went on for me, I kind of figured that same thing out that you were just talking about, is the fact that this is a direct reflection of myself and me not being able to deal with life and me not having the right tools, growing up, whether it's as a kid or as an adult. My tools were booze and drugs. That's all I knew. So once I figured out and I kind of was able to let that go and start working on self, I think that's when, like you were saying, the real miracle, the real change, the real beauty of this life and what we have to offer as people is really recognized.
Exactly, man. And here's something I heard a long time ago. If you have a drinking or a drug problem, you'll quit and your problems will be gone. It should be easy. Hey, I drink too much, I quit, life's amazing. But see, for most people, they want to quit drinking, they want to quit doing dope, and they stop for a minute and they can't. They go back. That means that you don't have a problem doing drugs, you have a problem living sober. So that's how you think. that's how you could probably tell if you have a problem. Otherwise, you just quit and walk away. But if you keep going back, that means the problem is how you feel when you live your life sober. And that's when we got to get down to changing that.
Yeah, man. I 100% agree. And, you know, to backtrack a little bit, one of the things I was saying, like all of us, you know, we all have our journey. You've had a journey too. There's been, like I said, some peaks and valleys of it. Can you take us back to kind of how, I know, from what I know, actually, you've been playing guitar for a long time, I believe, since you were a kid. But can you take us back to kind of how Head PE started and some of the years that followed that, and then what ultimately led you to leaving on a path to changing your life and living the life of recovery?
Well, there was a bunch of bands in LA. The LA scene was dying, like the late 80s. You know, it wasn't happening. The Seattle thing happened and all that stuff was going on with the Nirvanas and the Soundgarden and stuff. And so there's a few of us bands that could sell out clubs up there. I wasn't stoked on my band. I saw Jared play with his band. I thought, wow, that's a singer I'd love to work with. He's a very powerful guy, like just intense. You know, but both our bands were pretty much whack at the time. So it was like, hey, I wanted to, you know, court him and start working with him. So he and I started getting together. You know, since I left the band, they love to say that Jared formed Head PE, but the reality is it was he and I. We masterminded it. You know, when we started bringing in members from our other bands, once we were kind of figuring it out, I had the idea to do it something different. I wanted to get a DJ in the band, and at the time, Deftones wasn't touring with a DJ. Linkin Park did not exist. You know, Slipknot did not exist, not to my knowledge. Nobody was doing it other than the Beastie Boys, but they weren't really a rock band, you know. So
yeah.
We got a DJ in the band, and that was like, we're probably rocking around 95 or something, give or take a year. And then so I had moved to Huntington Beach. I had always lived in Orange County. It's, you know, beach town south of LA, about 30 miles. And I kind of somehow got lucky or intuition, but I was like, hey, man, screw LA, you guys. Let's come down here and play by the beach. I could feel a real something going on down here. Snowboarding was booming at the time. It was pretty new. Skateboarding was making a total comeback. Same with surfing, and all those companies were down here. There was a cool thing going on where they would have like one band play and then a DJ spinning like disco. And so all the, you know, surf skater kids would come and they'd, you know, get in the pit for a while and then everybody dance. So it was this cool combo of stuff.
Yeah.
So Head was, you know, we would listen to stuff like Cypress Hill and Rage Against the Machine and the Beastie Boys and, you know, older hip hop, the NWA, that, you know, Snoop Dogg was just coming out. All that kind of stuff. And when we loved, you know, I love punk rock stuff and Metallica and all that. And we just decided, you know, Jared and I actually went to a concert and I OD'd on mushrooms at this concert. It was Rage, the Beasties, and Cypress. But we knew once we were at that concert what we wanted to do. We wanted to be heavy like a Rage. We wanted to have hip hop like Cypress and have the funk like a Beastie Boys and combine it all together so you could dance or pit at our shows. And, you know, Korn was playing local clubs and we would see them. And so certainly they were an influence, though we worked hard to not let that become too much of influence. And so, you know, I talked Jared into rapping at the time. He didn't want to rap, but I was like working on the song with him. I was like, you know, I don't know. I kind of felt like a rap was going to go on the song. And then that's how it happened. You know, we started just combining all the things we loved into our sound. And, you know, we had all been chasing the making it concept for a long time, and we're damn near giving it up. And once Head started, we started selling out local clubs, and the labels were flying out to see us, and then we got a record deal, and then the rest is history.
I can't remember. I should have brought the quote up. Shit, I didn't bring it up. But there was something, I can't remember if it was you or Jared that had said it, but it was something about you have this fantasy almost of the record business, you know, the music business, and then like once you get in the heart of it and you kind of get going into it and you realize the hard work that it is, and you know, it's not all the glam and, you know, all the stuff that we see on TV so much. It's actually hard work, and it takes a lot of dedication. It takes a lot of time away from other things too, whether it be family or friends or whatever. What was that like? Like once you get into that, like you've dreamed for this, like you were saying, you know, we want to make it in quotes or whatever. And then you get in there. What happens on that roller coaster that is finally just like, you know what, like I gotta make a change here. Like this is not going the way that I expected it to.
Well, for most guys, if you're going to be in a band and get a record deal, you're already dedicated. People ask me like, hey dude, what made you want to do that? And it's like, I didn't have a choice. I was, something in my soul is like, I'm going to make records and I'm not stopping until it happens. We had other guys in our band early on. They were like, maybe going to quit. And we were like, whatever, we're doing this thing. And we were relentless. But what happens is, you're just naive and you're young, man. And that's the crazy thing. You have this incredible career, but, people in their early 20s, they're kids, man. You don't think so because you're like, I'm out of high school. I am a man. It's like, nah, you don't know shit.
Yeah.
And so you get the record deal and we're like, yeah, we got a record deal. It's going to go platinum. And when you go platinum, you make lots of money. And then we're going to buy a house. And then you realize, oh, you mean if you open for Korn on an arena tour, you can still be broke? What? When you're young, you think if you're playing on a stage in an arena, you're, loaded. It does not go that way. So what happened is we toured and we grinded for a long time and we had a great time, but we were for a year and a half in an RV with 6 guys in the band and, 3 crew. I'm sleeping on the floor some nights drunk and there's piss and shit everywhere, and you're on the Oz Fest, and all you do is you get a case of water, and you're trying to, and you get a check for $10,000, but then you got to make that last 6 months. It's tough, man. So you start realizing like none of this is guaranteed. Then you get a check. All right, we did a merch deal. Fuck yeah, things are going good. You get $100,000. You get to break out the manager, split it up between 6 guys. You're like, okay, I got $18,000. I feel like I'm rad, but actually, who knows when my next check's coming? So. What I tell people, I used to, do these classes and kids would ask questions about making it. I go, so if you made $5 million with your band, would you be stoked? Oh, hell yeah. Well, once you break off the management and the tax man and split up between your bandmates, you got a couple hundred G's. And if you don't make any more money after that and you have to span that out over your lifetime, what are you going to do? You're going to spend $60,000 a year? Well, that's like how much a guy who manages a McDonald's makes. It's like not impressive money. So then you're like, well, what, you think you're going to make $5 million year after year? Well, that kind of makes you like U2 or like a Korn or something. And there's very few bands that do that. So you got to do it for the love and for the art because the struggle is real, man. It's just how it is. And then since then, Head started when people sold records. But the funny thing is, Head's record sold more. I mean, maybe not now, but when I was with Korn, they put out Korn 3, and that record didn't even sell as much as one of our old records. Because records just don't sell anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like times have changed. People don't buy records. They dink and dunk and pick songs off and get it online or listen on Spotify where nobody's making money. So it's just hard, It's hard to turn art into money. People don't want to pay for it. If you're not drawing a lot of people on a tour, then these days it's hard to make money. You got to do it in merch and on touring and stuff. So that's the reality of it. But, after touring with Head for 8 years, me and the singer just had some, major drama we couldn't get over. It wasn't fun anymore. It was actually a living nightmare. I was broke and I was drinking constantly, and I had been doing that for a long time, and I just knew something had to give. Something had to change. I'm going to kill myself out here. Plus, I'm going broke. At least if I'm going to kill myself, get loaded, maybe I could be rich doing it, but I was broke and killing myself. And Jared and I really weren't even talking. It's like, we were at a good level too. We were opening up for Godsmack. We were on a good tour. We were still climbing up, but I couldn't do it anymore, man. I finally just gave in and I quit. And that band was my baby. I'm not saying, it wasn't the other guys too, but I mean, I worked hard on that band, the name, the logo, to help design our sound, to have influence on every element that we did. So it was hard to leave that, and then when I left, I didn't realize how much I identified with myself and being a musician. So when I had to come back out of orbit down to normal Earth and get a normal job, I was depressed. And then I just started doing even more drugs. But I didn't know that I was depressed. I just, was in it, spinning out of control.
Yeah, it almost takes on a life of its own at some point,
Well, that's the thing, with addiction, what we learn is that, people they don't look at their life and go, my life is on a scale of 1 to 10, it's this. and they don't see it for what it is. They don't see all the lies and the bullshit and how it's running their life. That you live in this state. We always hear the word denial. You're in the state of delusionment. Your life seems normal. You know what? I only do heroin a few times a week. What's the big deal? Like all of a sudden your brain's spewing out like you're doing whack stuff. You're hurting yourself so bad, and you're making excuses why it's not a big deal. So when you're in that spot, you really don't see it for what it is. And my experience, you know, I'm coming up on 8 years totally sober, and year after year, you just more see how sick you are, you know. And when you get sober, you'll like maybe your first month or two, you're like, oh my God, I was such a tripper. And it's like, well, then you get a year and realize in your first month or two, you were a tripper. Then you get 2 years and you realize when you had a year, you were tripping.
Yeah.
Because it's a constant evolution. It takes a long time to really see things for how they were. And then you're trying to grow the whole time, you know. That's really the gift of sobriety is the growth. And the people who grow stay and they get really happy, and the people don't are miserable and they get loaded again.
Yeah, and I like what you said too earlier about doing things for the right motives now. You know, like before, maybe some of the things that I used to do, I may have thought they were artistic or they were creative or they were fun at the time, but the motives were all wrong. You know, and so now when I'm able to put those things in a different light and learn about myself and then do them for the right reasons, whether it's to create something to give to other people, that's kind of what you were alluding to with Rock to Recovery. And I think part of that comes with a spiritual awakening. So I know that you went to rehab at some point after you left Head. And then can you talk about, or do you remember, or do you have something in particular that was kind of your spiritual awakening where you were just like, you know, holy shit, like this is it. Like I'm done.
Well, I was working with my brother, having a day job, and I went backwards. I had kind of cut out the drugs and just drank, but I went backwards. I went back into meth and heroin, and I was living this lie, trying to hide it like we do. And finally, I had to just give in and tell my brother all the things I was doing, you know, and he's like, oh, well, that's why you look like shit and miss work all the time. And so I thought I could kick it on my own because I had done it before. I had quit the drugs before. And he's, you know, being a normal guy, he's like, yeah, sure, drink. I don't care. Smoke weed, but just stay away from that really gnarly stuff. But the problem is when I get loaded on anything, I can't keep it in control. So that ended me up. Like, I was like, okay, bro, I'll stay off the hard stuff. But then I kept going back, even though I didn't want to, and I couldn't figure it out. I have like a Corona, and then next thing you know, I'd be at the dealer's house going, dang it, why? I promised him I wouldn't use, and now we got to tell Mom. And so what happened, I just started crying in my bed. I realized it hit me like I'm out of control. I do not have control. And then so the deal was if I couldn't control it, I'd go to rehab. And then when I went, so that was my moment of clarity that I was out of control, period. Even if I had a couple of days where I was kind of mellow, it always got bad again. And then, so I went into treatment, and that's when they taught me about it. The powerlessness is like when I pick up and I'm loaded, I don't have the power to start and stop when I want. I just don't. Some people do. A guy like me does not. So my only hope is to not pick up the first drink or the first hit of weed or whatever. So, but how do you do that? I couldn't do it before. And that's where, for me, I got into a process. I'm a guy who did the 12 steps, and that worked for me. That gave me a spiritual awakening. It helped me get out all that drama from my past and unload it, right? I cleaned house spiritually, and somebody enlightened me as to why I was doing the things I was doing, and I had the knowledge, and then I had a design for living that I could do every day. Because what we know about addiction is you don't cure it. You know, it's going to be there forever. So that's called a chronic disease, right? An acute disease, you have it and it goes away. It's chronic. So I have to manage it by working on myself all the time. And that's why you hear people like, oh, the guy had 5 years and he got loaded. Well, that's because they stopped working on the disease aspect. And so, you know, and I did the same thing. I had going on 3 years sober, but I got engaged and stopped doing my deal, and I got loaded again because my brain's like, yeah, you can drink beer, it'll be cool. And it wasn't cool. Beer wasn't your problem. I was like, yeah, it wasn't. And it's like, no, same thing happened. So I went insane again, right? The insanity returned. So now it's like anything, right? If you're an athlete, you go to the gym all the time. You don't get buff and play on a football team and never work out again. If you want to be in the football team, you're working out all the time. Well, I want to be sober all the time. I work on myself all the time, you know. And the beauty of it is now I help other guys get sober, and even girls if I know that need support. You know, you just be a nice person and let them know they're not alone and that there's a way out, and you share your experience, strength, and hope, and that helps me stay sober. So it's a pretty rad deal. I don't have to be ashamed of what I did anymore, because now all that gnarly shit I did, I can share with somebody else, and they go, "Oh, me too. I'm not alone." And then my horrible stories help me connect to other people, and then together we stay sober. And when you watch somebody with less time than you go from, you know, looking like they're barely alive and miserable to having an amazing life and blossoming, there's no better reward than that, you know?
Yeah. Part of the giving back. And I almost feel like there's this new like revolution of, you know, of recovery going on right now. And obviously, you know, the big support groups, you know, they can never be replaced. I mean, that's the foundation to me of recovery. But I feel like with a lot of the younger generation too, they're looking for different avenues. Obviously, technology's evolved. It's changed a lot of things, not just with recovery, but with the world, right? So if we kind of apply that, and I was just talking about this recently in a meeting. I always respect the anonymity. I always respect other people's anonymity. That's a big part of, you know, of the programs and of recovery. When it came to me, I just felt like I wanted to speak out about it. I'm proud to be an alcoholic. I'm proud to say that today, because really it's a part of who I am. Do you feel like there's this almost changing, like I said, almost revolution of kind of a new style of recovery, a new openness about it that's coming out and starting to change more people's lives?
Yeah, I think it's just awareness. If you go back to, like, who were the first rock stars, like Elvis and the Beatles, or you could argue maybe somebody else, you know, at that time, drugs are fully experimental. But now we have enough data and enough lifetime to watch people OD and go crazy on drugs, like your Hendrixes and your Chopwards and all that. So then it's like, what? Oh, drugs could kill you. Maybe they're bad. And then it goes on, and people, instead of hiding the alcoholic in the home, like, don't talk about dad's drinking problem. Now it's like, hey, and I remember when I was young, it was like, go to Chic Chanel. There's a way out. And, you know, and so the awareness keeps growing. And now it's like, addiction's a real thing. You don't have to be a 60-year-old whiskey drinker to be an addict. You don't have to be a junkie in a park. It hits all walks of life, you know, doctors, moms, and there's a way out. So there's a super heightened awareness about addiction, alcoholism, and all that stuff. So, you know, not everybody's an alcoholic who drinks. You know, some people just have. I had a relative who had a bad problem with cocaine, and then one day he quit and he's fine. And he's the raddest dude ever. Yeah, that ain't my case. So, you know, it depends. The sad thing is you got to figure out what's going to work for you. But the problem is, along the way, people die before they figure out the right path. For me, like I said, I tried it a million times my way, trying to change. It did not work. And so the 12-step programs gave me a design for living that keeps me sober. So, you know, in those programs, they have traditions because they want to keep it intact. They don't want people going, hey, I'm in Cocaine Anonymous, and I'm in Cocaine Anonymous, and I'm great, and I'm the president now. And then the guy gets loaded and snorts coke, and then everybody's like, well, Cocaine Anonymous sucks. So we try to keep anonymity out of respect for the program, because you don't want to go tooting the horn, and then we're human and fallible, and then all of a sudden all that backlash comes on the program. So we try to keep anonymity as one of the traditions for that way, and also so people have a safe place to come, because there's a lot of judgment against addiction and all that. So a lot of it's to safeguard the programs, but there definitely is more awareness now. People definitely talk about it now. That's why I chose this path. I could easily be anonymous and nobody knows, but I want to try to toggle the line of respecting the traditions of the rooms of all the 12-step programs, but also say, hey, this is what I had to do to save my life and change as a person, because I think I can help people, you know?
Yeah. And thanks, man, too, for pointing that out, the anonymity, you know, with respect to the program, because I think maybe I think maybe that's something I even overlooked. And just hearing you say that, kind of a light bulb goes off like, yeah, because I don't know, I've always just affiliated it with the person, the person not wanting to be seen in their community or being ashamed of the fact that they have a problem or something along those lines. But when you put it in that perspective too, as far as, just respecting the program itself, that really makes sense to me. So thanks for pointing that out.
The tradition.
Yeah, exactly. And, Wes, you played guitar for Korn from 2010 to 2013. To my knowledge, Korn didn't come to you and say, "Hey, Wes, come play guitar for us." Right. So this is after you're already on your path to recovery. Can you talk a little bit about the determination, some of the patience, some of the things that you would learn through your recovery that ultimately led you to getting the job, touring with Korn?
Well, my brain said that I would probably never do music again. It didn't go with sobriety,
Yeah.
But then I just kept staying sober. And part of being sober is like, prayer and meditation. And I don't consider myself religious, but I'm trying to find that gut intuition. Which direction am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to do? I was doing awe meditations. And, where I'm actually asking the universe to guide me because I was desperate, man. I didn't have a career. I didn't know which way to go. And then finally in my meditation, I was kind of like, hey, I think I want to get back into music. I started putting that out there. And then within like 10 days, Korn hit me up. Hey, you want to come play with us? And it's because they were into the concept of having a guy who didn't party in the band. So,
Got it.
I always share this in my circles of recovery, like where my brain, because the addicts have a problem with seeing things for what they truly are. My brain said, you can't do music anymore and tour if you're sober. Bullshit, man.
Huh.
The universe said, no, you're a musical dude. If you get sober, of course you're going to thrive in music more than ever. And I got the best gig of my life because I was sober. So that was cool, man. And it really, like when I got the official word that I was in, I started crying because, I scraped, like we talked about, the struggle, trying to make it the whole time. I left head. It felt like it was my baby and I had to walk away from it. And I kind of felt like I got ripped off, even though it was my own doing. But so to get back and finally make it and get that gig, because it took a while until that was actually officially the gig I had. I felt like, man, thank you, God, thank you, universe, whatever you want to call it, like all this struggling, and now I've been sober. It was my second time at 2.5 years sober that it came to be. And so I was just like, it was the most beautiful thing ever, and I've always had Korn are you kidding me? Those guys, such amazing, legendary band, groundbreaking. Just, they're a very, very, very special band. So it was cool. And it's probably one of the only bands that I really could fit in with my style of playing. I'm just not a kind of guy who plays a bunch of cover songs and stuff. So it fit my style really well. So the miracle recovery habit, I always share this. So when I was getting sober and I felt hopeless, I was in a meeting and a lady shared, I was a prostitute shooting dope in a park, turning tricks. I did the 12 steps, went back to school, met the man of my dreams. I have a loving family now and I run a law firm. And I was like, what the fuck? So, those are the stories that gave me hope. You're like, oh, okay, if I do that, my life gets amazing. I heard so many stories like that. So I was like, fine, you say I do this and my life's going to get amazing. I'm going to do this to the best of my ability. And that's what I did. And then I get to tour around the world totally sober. I had no desire to drink or use. Because, the only reason I was there is because I was sober. So I wasn't going to take a chance and mess that up. And then the cool thing is I went to meetings all around the world. And I had this network of people who would support me.
Oh, yeah,
So beautiful experience. And I got to go back and play shows that I didn't remember because I was so loaded, and I got to play them again sober, and that was a challenge too, because I always relied on drinking to deal with my stage fright and whatever. But, again, get rid of the booze and the drugs, and then you start bettering yourself as a person. So I got to address stage fright head on, sober and organically. So I got to learn a way to handle it better than to have to suck on a bottle of Jägermeister.
Yeah. I saw Korn. I want to say it was, I don't know, maybe 2000, somewhere around there, down in Bakersfield at a show down there. We drove down there. Dude, my fucking head, it literally rang for like 4 days afterwards. Like I remember going to bed that night, just being like, dude, my ears and my head was just, it was still throbbing. It just throbbed for days afterwards, man. One of the coolest shows I've been to though, man, just super loud, super energetic, definitely a good time. So that's gotta be cool for you to sit there in front of, how many, 80,000 people? Is that a pretty good estimate on some of the big festivals or something like that?
Yeah, 80, probably push 100 sometimes.
Crazy.
Yeah. It's surreal. It's kind of like if you've ever been on a mountaintop and then you look out and you can see forever, you're like, okay, I know I'm looking 100 miles away from here, but you just can't realize how big it is what you're looking at. That's kind of like how the crowd is. I kept trying to tell myself, dude, you're playing with Korn right now, and there's 100,000 crazy motherfuckers out there. But it's just beyond, it's beyond understanding. I think there's a lot of stuff in life. Like, I don't have kids, but I suppose when you have your first child, when you're staring at it, you probably have that same, like, what? Is this real? I think there's a lot of those moments, the most beautiful moments in life, I think, are beyond our comprehension,
Yeah. So Wes, let's bring this thing full circle, man. Rock to Recovery, it helps veterans, it helps recovering addicts, it helps people, helps teenagers too. I know it's a great organization. Tell us a little bit about it, where people could find more information about it.
We have two arms of business. Yeah, we have a for-profit and a nonprofit. Started just as a nonprofit. Well, basically what it was is when I was in the rehab and my dreams were crushed and I felt like a piece of crap and I was so depressed and I'm hanging out with all these people I don't know, talking about my feelings. My guitar really helped me escape. I used to always run to drugs or women or something to change the way I feel. And I really noted how much music helped me change the way I felt in treatment. And there wasn't music in treatment when I was there. So the idea of Rock to Recovery was like, well, I want to endeavor to get music in a treatment because everybody will tell you I love music. It helps me feel better and da-da-da-da-da. But then if you go deeper into it scientifically, when people play music, it engages the left and right side of their brain. When we get them singing, it releases oxytocin, which is the love molecule. And most addicts and alcoholics are depressed and lonely and they feel separate. So it lets us check out and really also at the same time connect music. And, what we do in Rock to Recovery is we write and record songs. And I show people who are all my guys, there's 6 of us now that do it. What we do is we'll show people how to play the simplest thing because, humans didn't just make a guitar and shred like Jimi Hendrix. When music started for humans, it was probably banging on logs and grunting and groaning. So the point is, if we're like 2 years old and somebody put on music, we dance around. But at some point we're like, oh, that's embarrassing. People will think we're lame. I'm not good. And we stop creating.
Yeah.
So what we try to get them to do is creating regardless of how much experience they've had with music or not. And by the end, we have a song and we're singing and playing, getting some emotions out. And that's what we do in Rock to Recovery. So I started out thinking it would be a nonprofit, because I always thought, well, nonprofit, that's cool. Let's help people. But what we found is there's such a calling for it that we now work with 37 different treatment programs and rehabs and stuff.
Wow, it's awesome.
And so we do. Yeah, it's so awesome. We become a part of the treatment curriculum. When you're in the rehab all day, they have you doing like this group and that group and this group. And one of the groups is Rock to Recovery. And we use that income to help fund the nonprofit. And what we do with the nonprofit is we put Rock to Recovery, we donate it to people who can't afford it, like state-funded places or other nonprofits, and we can give them free Rock to Recovery sessions. We work with places like NC Lifeline, which is for at-risk youth and teenagers. We work with the Wounded Warrior, U.S. Air Force through the Department of Defense, and we work with like Claire Foundation and Conscious Recovery up in Santa Monica. They're state funded and could never afford a program like ours, so we get to donate it and give it to them. So it's a beautiful thing how it just just the whole machine works, and we're just taking music everywhere. And I started it in 2013, brought on I was like, hey, I wonder if I could show other people how to do this. Brought in a couple dudes, Sonny Mayo and Nate Lawler, who helped with their style and heart and, creative nature. They brought in some extra special elements to it, and we made it an even better program. And now we have 6 guys that do it total. Looking to hire more. We do about 250 sessions a month from, basically San Diego to Malibu. So it's working and it's growing. And, you asked, the website is rock2recovery.org. It's rock2recovery.org, O-R-G, and that's our website. We have a Facebook page. We got Twitter and all that stuff. We're going to be working on doing our first fundraiser and awareness. We're blessed enough that we've had enough business to fund ourselves, but now, and we haven't really like waved our arm like, hey, help us. But now we realize it's working and we want to really expand our reach. So sometime in 2016, we'll be having a fundraiser and awareness event in LA and have some rock star friends come and raise some money so we can continue to take music out to the people. Because what happens then is music acts like a drug for addicts and alcoholics or people struggling or the soldiers with PTSD. We get them singing and playing, and it's weird how it works, man. You could go, I've so many stories of going from depressed and dope sick and all that, and then you get done playing some music, and you're like, damn, I feel good. And after every session, I ask them, I did 2 sessions a day. I say, who feels better than when they walked in? And everybody shoots their hand in the air. I do. So, we're trying to bring light into dark situations,
That's so awesome, man. And I'm sure that, like you were saying, you've had some great experiences with different people that you've met along the way. And, I don't know if you keep in contact with any of these people. Something just popped in my head at the tail end of that is, man, you should write a book about this kind of stuff, man. Some of the experiences that have went on and share some of these people's stories. Like you said, music is an emotional thing. It does act like a drug, and it will bring something out, bring the kid in you out again. We stop creating at a certain point because whether it's fear from what other people think, or we're just too busy with our adult life or whatever you want to call it. Man, that's so awesome, man. And thank you so much for sharing your story today and coming on talking about Rock to Recovery. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you. My pleasure. I appreciate you taking an interest and supporting the endeavor. I'm just, you kind of learn in life that when you're out for yourself, it just doesn't go well. And the greatest joy is that we're all here to help each other, man. We help each other have the most amazing life. That's the most rewarding, fulfilling life there is. So that's like what, you're thanking me, I'm thanking you. See, that's how it works. That's the beauty of it all.
Yeah, that's right, my man. That's right. All right, Wes. Well, hey, man, thank you so much, brother.
My pleasure, and to everybody out there, if you're having a tough day, man, just know there is a way out. You can do this. There's always a way to recover, man. Never give up.
This has been another episode of That Sober Guy podcast. For more information, visit www.thatsoberguy.com. Contact Shane at sobriety@thatsoberguy.com and leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes. Peace, love, respect. Keep your blood clean.